Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. I was so excited about this it's not a new idea, but the process, I guess, is new, or it is to me. I have not seen it before. It's just another way to use up our trash. So I have worked in an office most of my life, well, all of my life, I guess. And if you have, you know that these reams of paper are used in abundance daily. I now work from home, but it's still office work. And, I use these reams of paper. So when I tore this, let me show you. Obviously, when I started saving these, I hadn't thought of the idea yet, so I just ripped this one. But I try to tear them now as neatly as I can to keep one solid piece. But even all these little pieces we can use, and I'll show you that. But the inside of this paper, and this might be a better way to show you, is shiny. I don't know that it's coming across, but it is shiny. It feels like freezer paper. And I have different kinds of, she gets different kinds of reams. Whatever she buys is what I use. So on the inside of this, like I say, it's shiny. And I've seen a lot of process videos or, ideas where they use napkins and iron them onto freezer paper and make wonderful journaling spots. Of course, their freezer paper is usually a solid color, brown or white. I looked into buying freezer paper, but honestly, I was just buying it to do this with, and to me, that's kind of a waste. I don't freeze my things in paper. I use Ziploc bags to freeze my meat and things, so I thought that would be kind of a waste. Plus, it's kind of expensive. If you like this, don't tell everybody you know to save these for you, because all these pieces I'm going to show you today were made from 2 of these. And I had lots left over. I still have more scraps that I've kept for edging and things like that. But I'll show you how to iron these on. And also, this is the glue that's on the outside. And during the video, I mentioned that, putting something on top of this so that this glue, because it's going to get hot again with your iron and possibly stick to your iron. I don't worry about it because my iron is old and I use it only for this. Also, I'm not sure, I did the video for the actual process of ironing it on a couple days ago, so I can't remember. But if I didn't mention it in the video, flip it over and iron the front as well. Iron the front of your napkin after you've done the back and it's all nice and sealed on. Flip it over and do the front, because I think it gives your napkin a smoother texture. But here I'll show you the process of how to do this, and then I'll show you some things that I made with it. Okay, so as you can tell, I have, whenever this one was torn, it kind of left pieces. So I'm going to cut it down into more workable pieces. But to show you on the inside where when I open it, it has these pieces of paper. Those you'll want to take off before you use that strip. If you can't get them off, I don't think you can use that strip because there's glue there and it won't allow the napkin to bond to that. So I'm just going to cut this down real quick into more manageable pieces. I'm going to try to leave as big of a whole piece as I can. I'm just cutting off the sides right now. I like these long strips because most of my napkins have a border, and I like to iron onto this piece and make belly bands or borders on a page. This is the napkin I'm going to use for this one. So again, this was the strip of my napkin page. This is where the paper is, and that I'm not sure if it will adhere to that because this is not the thick part. I think it's just torn off some glue. So I'm going to start down here, and at this point you can just lay across some wax paper or a towel, something to protect your iron from hitting the shiny parts. But I'm just going to flip mine over, lay my piece of paper across it, And I did already try this to see if I could put my hot iron on this. And I'm using a pretty hot setting. It's on cotton. The only bad thing about not laying something down is like this. There's glue on the outside of your package to hold it together. And of course it melts because it's glue. But it's done. Just like that. It's not coming up. It's not going anywhere. You don't even have to sew around it if you don't want to. But that's how easy it is to do. And then if you want to, as long as there's no shiny side sewing, you could go over the top just to make sure it has a really good seal. And then I would allow it to cool for a little bit. A lot of times on your napkin you have pretty little things like these butterflies, and they're really hard to get cut from your napkin without losing the butterfly. And this way, once you iron it to this, it has a sturdier back and you can cut around all the pieces. And again, you don't have to do this part with flipping it over. You can lay down wax paper or a towel, not wax paper, I'm sorry, parchment paper. I don't know if wax paper would work or not. I didn't try that. But you can see where my glue is getting hot. My iron is very, very old. I will wipe it off with a towel when I'm done to make sure none of it stays. But it's not bothering it. It doesn't seem to be leaving any residue. So I wouldn't recommend that. I don't want you to ruin your appliances. But there it is. It's all glued down. And we're going to cut these out nice and sturdy. So let's get back to our projects. So these pieces, I loved the butterfly on, and I just fussy cut some of those out. And I used one of them on a little notebook. I backed it to some cardstock that I had. It was just scraps like this. You could use packaging or chipboard, whatever, just to make it a little sturdier. Putting it on the paper makes it sturdier and easier to work with. Easier to cut them out. It was awesome. And so I used one of the butterflies on this little notepad. I put it on some fabric because I felt like it blended in too much with the notebook. And I sewed this one in, but I just used scrap pieces out of my scrapbook to make a little notepad. Now I didn't cover the inside of this one because, again, like I've mentioned before in my videos, I really like showing that these are repurposed, recycled, upcycled, whatever you want to call it, items. Like that they came from, you know, a packaging. And I don't know, maybe it's certainly easy to cover. I did cover some of the insides of things, and I will show you that. But I made this little notebook and this little notebook. I cut this little heart out, made another little scrappy, and again I left it where you can definitely see it was a copy paper wrapper. But I thought those were cute, neat little things to add to your note or your journals. This I made a writing spot, and the cool thing about the ironing is when you have a napkin, most times, let me show you this one for example. Most times your napkin only, you know, each half will be faced, it needs to be, it's directional, in other words. So this half is faced right, but if you ironed it this way, something's going to be upside down, unless you do it like a fold over page. And I did do some of those so that they would look right. Like this one is going to go over the top of a page. It has writing on the inside. That's kind of cool. Like I say, none of these ideas that I made with them are new. It's just the process, I think, that is different for me. So the cool thing about the napkins is you can, let me show you another little trick. If you, instead of taking the tape and tearing your napkin to get the 2-ply apart, you can run your fingernail or a bone folder or a butter knife, anything, and you want to do it softly. It will break the seal so that you can tear them apart without having to ruin part of your napkin. Just like that. And it can tear it all apart. And I do keep the white ones. I know I have a problem. But I use those for decoupage when I'm going to add color and things like that. Use it for my texture. But like on one like this, you can tear the napkin. And I like the rough tear, so I don't cut it with scissors. Usually I just lay down a ruler and pull against the ruler to give it the rough edge. Try not to go up the side. And that gives it the rough edge. So when you want maybe a bigger piece, like if you were making a lot taller journal, you could iron this piece on and then iron this, and you will not be able to see it as much, especially if you overlay something like this. You would have twice the size. I did do something like that, or if it was going to be a front and back, I made something like that. You could place it how you want it, basically, is what I'm going for here, so that your items are the correct way. This one, which was over the page, came from 2 different pieces of the napkin. And this is 2 different pieces of napkin. It's not folded over like I said it was. I ironed this first piece, I turned it, ironed this piece, so that when it was folded, they would both be correct versus one being upside down. I hope I'm making sense. I know I'm talking that to death. But like this one is a full piece, so part of it's right, part of it's upside down. I flipped this when I ironed it so that the whole thing, I think you get it. Okay, so this is the writing spot. I've sewn around it. I did back it with some tea-dye paper. Again, it was scrap that I just pulled from my scrapbook. Sewn on some ribbon. This ribbon actually came from a friend, of course, and it had an edge on it, which I didn't care for, so I tore that off. And I've kept the edge for tag toppers and different things, but it gave it kind of a rough edge that I thought was really pretty. You can see that. It's funny, I learned something from this ribbon. You know, when I got it, I thought, what am I going to use that for? I love it. It's beautiful, but I don't ever use really anything that color. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but think outside of the box. Think, well, what if I took this off? Or what if I redo it this way? Dismantle it. You're still using all the components. You're just making it into your style. But, and like I say, as far as this copy paper wrappers, don't tell every office you know, because all of this came from 2 wrappers. I would just maybe tell one friend, because you don't want to end up with a whole bunch, feel overwhelmed like I do with my things. But what I was saying is, on this, instead of when you get something thinking, what am I going to make out of it? You know, and trying to force that, hadn't thought any more about this ribbon, but I've used it several times in these projects, and I think my point was with that, maybe just don't overthink things that you have. If you think that they're of value and you're going to use them at some point and you have space to store them, hang on to them. Because, yes, there will maybe be a day that you will use them. So anyway, I have the fold over the page. This will also probably be something that I clip down onto the page as a writing spot. I had it clipped with just this little thing, but who knows, when it comes time to put it in a journal, maybe I'll tuck it in a pocket, or, you know, hang the edge off a page. Don't know. Lots of options with that one. And then this butterfly napkin had this edge all the way around it, and I thought, what a great border. So the strips that I showed you I tore off from my other one, I ironed it on to the side, and I will make belly bands. That's what these came from. These little notepads was the edging belly bands. The bottom of a page, wouldn't that look cool on the bottom of a... This isn't really a page, but I mean, you get the idea. If you kind of fussy cut a little bit, give it some dimension. You don't have to go around each one, but just even a wave, and then maybe ink it and put it at the bottom of the page, the side of a page. You could wrap it. Either, so many things you can do with that. It's very pretty. And all you did was iron a napkin to a copy paper package. So here's some more of those that I made. I also ironed it to this napkin, which is definitely directional, but I like the little pieces on it. So this is where the heart came from on this one. Plus I made this little band out of it. But what I did was, this was the end of my ironing, and I took all the little scrap pieces and just ironed them on here random. Kind of like you would do a collage board, so you don't really know what you're going to get. But I wanted to show you how easy it is to tear this from your packaging. You can certainly cut it if you want that straight edge. I like it the rough again. So if you just pull your paper and then push backwards on your napkin. So pull your paper towards you and the napkin backwards. It tears just right up next to that edge wonderfully. And this was even a funny shaped one. Isn't that cool? I thought that's the easiest tearing I've ever had. Oh, this is a really crazy piece. Okay. And then I don't know if I'll make these journaling spots or cut out some of these little pieces, which I have already done some of them, because I think they will make, of course I would shape that up some, but I think they will make good pieces, like to stick on a page, you know, to give a white page some color. Here's some of them that I fussy cut out. Of course, I'll ink around them. And because, you know, now it's not just a napkin, you have this backing. It's easy to ink. You don't have to worry about tearing it. And it would make a really good, just to glue on the corner of your page. Isn't that cute? It's just that easy. I just loved it. I thought it was so cool. I made these books out of it. I'm going to make journals out of these, of course. Made what I backed it with larger, used more of that packing paper, sewed around it. And I did put Mod Podge on these too, because I got some glitter on that one. I like the feeling of Mod Podge, and I think that it makes it a little sturdier versus just your napkin. I mean, because your napkins are still pretty. I mean, once you iron the front, it gives it a slicker, kind of more like paper, not napkin, cushy, cottony feel. I don't know. I think I was just thinking it would give it extra protection from the uses. So this one I backed to some of the origami paper. This is the Paris, and I thought that worked out good. I did put my crinkled seam binding in between the layers. I love this. I think it's going to make such a cool little journal. Same with this one. Put the seam binding in. I also, this was the big piece of the two that I had. I opened it up pretty good. But you can see all of the edge and part of this over here. This isn't even, this is probably half of the paper, I guess, once you open it up. I'll make a taller journal out of this. This was one of the few napkins I had that wasn't directional, so I could iron it, the whole napkin on. But I will probably back it to something and make a journal cover out of this one. And I made little pockets. And I didn't back this whole thing because it's sturdy. I mean, it really is. That paper is hefty. Of course, it carries, you know, how many pounds of copy paper, so it has to be pretty hefty. And then I just put some lace and run a little bit of scrapbook music paper in there, sewed around it. I think this would be good to add to journals, put your ephemera in, or just little extras, or send Happy Mail because it's pretty flat. This will be a journal cover. I wasn't even going to show this one because I don't really think a quick make. because I have an idea that I wanted to take my, you know, the boxes we all get, lots of boxes, and I tore part off to show the corrugation of it. And then I'm going to wrap the napkin, and I want this to show because I'm going to use some oxide inks. Now it's drying because I have put Mod Podge on here, so that, because this is what happens if you don't, it just soaks up all the color. This was really bright orange. This one held pretty good, and the blue held pretty good, but on the thinner pieces, of course, it just sucks up the color. So I did go ahead and put not Mod Podge, gesso on these pieces that I'm going to paint. But I just wanted to show you, you know, there's the torn edge and different things. Again, I wasn't even sure I wanted to show that one because this has not been a quick make. I'm tearing all that off and whatnot, and it's still not done. But I did want to show you the different things that you could make with this, little ephemera pieces. Wanted to show you things I had made with it. Again, none of these are new, but fun and quick, and all from just those two things. Here's a little envelope too, from one of the scrap pieces. I may line this. I don't know if I'm going to make it a little envelope or if I'm going to line it with paper, but, you know, again, look at that. That's napkin. Isn't that cool? Like I say, you don't have to line it. We're repurposing and we're upcycling, and some of the copy papers come in a pretty white cover, so you probably could write on that. And I also did an experiment because I thought, what if you just wanted to paint over this or use the oxide inks? If you get this side wet, is it going to make your napkin come off? And the answer is no. I took a strip and I put gesso on this part, or Mod Podge, I can't remember which. Either way, they're both water-based. Put it on this part and then left this part with nothing. And I used some distress inks, and it didn't come loose. And it didn't come through to the back of the paper. And I certainly can tell it's not going to go through from this side either. It seems like I did something where I painted on the back side and it didn't bother the napkin. It didn't make it loose or come off. I will say that 90% of what I done, I still have no issues with it coming apart. I mean, it's pretty fused on there. But I did sew around some, and some of them, I guess it depends on how much of that waxy it has on the inside. You know, like anything, some of them might not be as covered, and therefore there were certain little areas that I thought would come up or would tear apart, so I sewed around some. But you certainly wouldn't have to. If you saw edges coming up, use your glue and hold it back down. Trying to make myself use scraps, just like on the one where I lined it. I didn't want to get anything new. I didn't want to tear into new things, so I used things that were either already scrapped, like this packing paper, or things that I had made for this purpose to back these. Again, this was just a scrapbook piece, or scrap piece from this scrapbook that has all of these papers in it. I just pulled out of here and filled the insides. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got some ideas, ways to use up. If you're like me, you have tons of napkins. You know, they come in a pack of 20 and one of them does so many things. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe got some good ideas, some inspiration. Maybe you're like me and you saw that shiny side and maybe you're already doing this. If you like this, please give my video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I have several of the quick makes. I think this will be episode 4. And it will notify you as new ones come out. Not sure how many more I will have. But new videos are coming all the time. So look for those. And appreciate you joining me. Thanks again. Like and subscribe. And I will see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.